So my brother's getting married next month, and I wanted to make him a memory box that they could keep on the mantle and would be sort of out of the norm of their wedding presents. And one of the things I've always wanted to do is stone inlay. So I think I'm going to do a dovetailed memory box with a stone inlay lid. And I found this gorgeous piece of walnut here with this big knot in the middle, and that's going to create a gorgeous grain wrap. And then we're going to inlay the stone into the lid using this pattern. We're going to have to do it one at a time because West Systems epoxy, although it dries very clear, it takes a full day to cure. So we're going to do one at a time, although in the video I'll show you all three of those at once. We're going to use leather for the bottom of the box, which will look gorgeous. It's nice and soft and will create a beautiful look on the inside. I've got this gorgeous piece of walnut with this crazy knot through it, which is going to create a beautiful grain match throughout the entire thing. The stones are medium cut, half ounce. The mother of pearl comes in two sizes. There's these larger pieces and smaller ones. Each line in the router template is going to be a third thinner than the next, which I think will create a lot of depth. And we're going to go ahead and dovetail the box using the Katz-Moses magnetic dovetail jig. So let's get started by milling some lumber, and I'll show you how I put this thing together.
Come on! Yeah! Here we go! Yeah! 1, 2, 3, 4! Come on! Let's go!
Okay, so now that we milled up our lumber, we're gonna go ahead and make 3 plywood templates. Go ahead and put a little spray adhesive on them and then stick them together. So we got our templates cut out. You saw that we stuck this template down with our center line. We're gonna use that center line to reference. When I printed out my templates, I put a center line in all of them. So we're gonna go ahead and use a bushing in our router. This is 7/16 bushing. We're gonna start with a 1/4 inch bit, then we'll use a 3/16 inch bit, and then an 1/8 inch bit to route our templates so we get those different thickness lines. So let me show you how I go ahead and do that. It may look like I did it one after another to you guys, but that's just the magic of video editing. So here we go. We've routed out our groove for our stone inlay. I'm going to start with the mother of pearl. And just a piece of advice when you're doing this is try and keep your stone just below the level of the depth of your inlay part of your lid. And the reason is when it goes above and you get epoxy in it and you sand it, you're going to get half stones. So you're going to sand through half a stone. And it doesn't look bad once you get some finish on there, and it's not that noticeable, but if there's a bunch of them, it takes away from the depth of it. You get sort of a flat stone look. So I'll take like a business card or a piece of wood and make sure nothing's over the top of my thing here when I go through. So let me show you how I do that. we've got the lid done, everything's inlaid, we're gonna turn our attention to the bottom. Since this is a memory box, it's not gonna have any trays, but I would like it to have a really cool sort of delicate look in the inside. So we're gonna use some leather here, and I've got this is gorgeous piece of leather I ordered for another project a long time ago that I never ended up using. And we're gonna go ahead and glue it to our bottom piece. We're gonna use wood glue. And one of the things to remember when you're gluing to thin pieces is that moisture can cause it to taco really bad. So what I like to do is I look at the rings and see which way they're going. And if the rings were going this way, I would then glue on top, because it would want to taco with the shape of the rings. So by gluing up top, it's going to want to pull it the other way, hopefully keeping it flat. To aid in flatness, I've got 2 pieces of plywood here. We're going to sandwich it between them and then clamp it really well and wait for it to completely dry, and that should mitigate any movement of the wood. So we're going to cut out our leather, glue it to our piece of wood. Let me show you how we do that. Okay, so we have our top inlaid and all cleaned up. We have the leather glued to our bottom, which is looking really neat, and we have our resawn board that we're gonna use for the sides. Now, this is where things are gonna get really important. We need to trim the bottom and the top the exact same, and then we need to do the same thing to both sides of the resawn board so that we keep our book match. So we're gonna use a stop block like this one. This is the Katz-Moses universal no deflection stop block, which is available for pre-sale on my website, but I believe it'll be coming out next week. So we're going to trim our bottom and our top to be the exact same size, which is 5 by 8. And we're gonna let that overhang by about 3/16 of an inch. And then once we have those measurements and we measure them and we make sure they're right, we're gonna go ahead and cut our sides. But when we cut our sides, we need to do the exact same thing to both of them, and here's why. To keep our book match, we have our pieces laid out like this. We have our front, our side, our back, our other side, and they're gonna go in a line like this. So when we trim them, we need to trim off the exact same amount from both sides, so that way we retain our 4-corner book match. We're gonna then dovetail those together, and then we'll cut a groove to fit the extra 3/16 that we left on our bottom and our top, and glue everything up, and that'll create our box. We'll then release the lid and go about our finishing process. So when you're doing this step, just be real careful to retain your 4-corner book match and keep everything the same. Use a stop block to accomplish that, and take your time and make sure you're doing it right. So let me show you how we do that. Okay, we've got our sides milled up. Now let's cut some dovetails. We're gonna be using the Katz-Moses magnetic dovetail jig 8-to-1. There'll be a link down in the description. Let's go. so we've got our dovetails cut, and we're going to go ahead and cut the grooves into the sides and to accept our lid and our bottom. And for our lid and our bottom, we're going to cut a rabbet all the way around so it fits and looks like it's part of the whole box and there's no gaps or anything like that. So to do that, we're going to cut a rabbet into the bottom of both of these. That way the visual part of it will look really clean. We're going to cut our grooves using an 1/8 inch spiral upcut bit in my router and an edge guide. One of the important things about doing this is making sure you know where your groove's going to be and not to go all the way through on the portions that are going to be in the exterior of the box. So for me, it's going to be important for me to stop before the ends of my pins and tails, so that way there's not a little hole on the edge of your box. Let's go ahead and get started with the router. We're going to get everything cut, and then that way we can take some exact measurements for our lid and our bottom and fit them perfectly into the box. So here we go. Here's a great little trick when you need to measure inside a box. Take 2 pieces of scrap and make sure the edges are square. You take them to your inside measurement, expand them to their full capabilities, and take a spring clamp and you just clamp them in place. And there you go. That's exactly how long your inside measurement is. Okay, so we've got everything sized up, and now we need to trim the rabbets for our bottom and our top. Now, one of the really cool new things about my stop block is this micro adjust feature. So basically, we're gonna set our stop blocks really close, and then we're gonna sneak up on it using a business card. If we're not quite there, we'll put a business card between, we'll adjust it and do that. So this is gonna be a really good way to do this because we won't have to move this thing and have to remeasure and all that. So let me show you how I get that done. Okay, so we've got everything sized up. Everything is fitting great. I've done a dry fit. We're gonna glue this thing up. I have blue tape everywhere to make sure that no squeeze out gets on the inside. I sanded the inside, which makes box making a lot easier if you take care of all the interior sanding first. So we're gonna go ahead and glue this up. So we've got our box glued up, and we're gonna release the lid, and then I've got some maple here that I'm going to put inside, which will hold the lid in place. It'll be like a little lip on the inside. You'll see how I do it. I'll miter the corners and fit them in using the trick of the spacer guide, where we'll use 2 pieces of wood to get the exact distance in between the 2 edges, and then we'll use that to set our crosscut sled. One of the things about releasing a lid that kind of sucks is you end up losing 1/8 of your box somewhere, which means you lose grain match, you lose the size of your dovetails. So a little trick I like to use is I use a circular saw blade from a skill saw. This is 1/8 of an inch at the most. It's probably more like this is like a 1/16 of an inch. Whereas like this is a thin curve saw blade, which is 3/32. You can see it's massively bigger. And then like a regular curved blade is 1/8 of an inch. Now with the saw stop saw, the problem is the brake cartridge. It will read that this is not a blade. And so what you can do to trick it is you can push the cartridge, you use a dado cartridge and you raise it all the way up, and the saw stop will read that there's a blade in there. So let's get started. I'm going to show you how I do this. And next step will be finishing the best part. So here we go. Okay, so we have the lid released and we have the insides cut. Because of that stop block, they are so snug. I'm not even going to glue them in, which will allow for seasonal wood movement. I'm also not going to stand the back of them where they're going to be touching the box, because that could really affect the fit. So we're going to pre-finish the inside of them so I don't get any shellac on the leather. And we're going to sand the top of the box, break the corners, and get some finish on here. We're gonna French polish it, and it's gonna, I think, look beautiful. I'm so excited. I want to thank you guys for checking out this video. Please subscribe to my channel and check me out on Instagram. We've got lots of great things going on. Go to the store, get a dovetail jig or a stop block. I've got stickers and all that. So thank you so much for watching, guys, and enjoy the rest of this video.